Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch the Third, coming to you live from the Place Home Studios of Ball's Spots Production here in the beautiful city of Santa Ana, California, for yet another episode of YWL Online's totally approachable Bible study for all. Joining me, as per the usual, in studios, my friend, my brother in Christ, the disembodied voice of Rudy.
Everybody, I love you all. Welcome with the Lord.
And joining us from a more than acceptable safe social distance through the miracle of telephony is my father, Chaplain Bill Hatch. How you doing, Pop?
I'm doing well. Good day to all my fellow Bible inquisitors. And I will say publicly for all of your benefit, Bill, slow down. We have an hour for the show.
Yeah, but we don't want to spend it all on
you
on
squeezed
intro.
all that stuff in so fast that it was not really audible. I mean, people talk fast, and what you just ran through was. But anyway, hello and greetings from Poplar Bluff, Missouri.
Oh, goodness. Wherever you all may be inquiring from. Yeah, we've got a lot of great material here to go through. We're in Judges 2. We'll be starting with verse 6 of chapter 2, not chapter 6 of verse 2.
Correct.
And looking to get through quite a bit today. But first, I think we have time for a Rudy Minute.
Yay!
Welcome with the Lord.
Indeed.
The thing, pride.
Pride?
A lot of us have it, even though sometimes we don't think we do, but we do.
I'm not prideful. I'm the most humble person you'll ever meet, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Or exactly.
Because even in life, I always wanted to rumble, and then for people to see me and see that, hey, that's the man. And sometimes people did. They would have meetings like other games. Some come up and say, hey, I remember you did this. Hey, I remember that. I have pride about that. And what it was God let me live to be here at this moment to say, pride is not good. And it feels good because I know sometimes even things I do, but then I tell myself, be quiet. That's not for me. That's from God. So, you know what? I try not to think about something if I do good because at first it comes to my head. And then I go, you know what? It's not mine. It's God's. So we got to remember pride. There's people that give things to help other people and other people. And the video, my lady told, I saw you help a homeless person. And I told her, we told her that. There's some people that they don't pray no more because they don't have, that's not, we all have. We got to be humble of God. Yes, I love you, but you know what? I didn't want this because it's because we should talk about it. It is. I got to be in secret. I want to be in secret helping people because you know what? Once I start thinking that I'm doing good, that's bad. Remember?
Okay.
All right, we had a little glitch there, folks, but the point being is that pridefulness, like Rudy said, is a big dragon in our lives and can be. And the thing that came to mind when Rudy started talking about it is we're just about at springtime. So you know what all these $1 million baseball players are doing? They're practicing baseball.
Yep.
And the same thing is true of concert level musicians year round. They play hours and hours a day in practice. And that's important to know that, we can't just be prideful in our faith either. We need to continually, as in daily, look to God's holy word. That's why we do the show twice a week, is to give you another option for developing your own study methods and to be able to get you into a routine of sorts. We don't broadcast every day on this. That would absolutely be difficult. In fact, I think it would be impossible. But still, we enjoy doing the shows together like we do.
Yes, we do.
So with that said, good job, Rudy. Let's not be prideful. Let's accept people when they recognize something we've done. But, It's all right to say thank you. I just try to keep it low key. I don't try to do it for any boastful reasons, because we shouldn't.
Right. Doesn't help.
I mean, Jesus made it so mild or quiet, on the quiet side, QT as it were. He said, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. That's pretty darn humble in helping others. So we look at it from there. So shall we begin our study in Judges again? Or
let us begin.
All right.
Continue
we
our
left
study.
off to where we could begin today at Judges chapter 2, verse 6.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Surprise, chapter 2:6 all the way through 3:6 is a second refresher from the author, who we do not know who it was.
No.
So the
Although
author...
it could have been Samuel.
Maybe. Come on now. We just don't
Maybe. We don't
know. Thing is that this author is using what we call today 2:6 through 3:6 as a summation or a resummarizing, taking from the death of Joshua up to the first judge.
Right.
It is not perfect, but it is here. So we get to look at it. We do get some fun little ideas from this chapter or these portions. For instance, the only time we have an age for Joshua is at his death. It's in this section that we know was 110 years old.
Wow.
When he died. But we do not know how far into things are. We can put little pieces together. For instance, the book of Joshua that just came earlier. We can only tell from it for time period is that Caleb, one of the two spies who went into the land, who said, yes, let's go get it and take it. God's with us. We know that he was 40 years old when he said that at the beginning of the 40 years in the desert. And then we know that at the time of the partitioning out of land, he's 85. So it appears that the time frame for Joshua is only like 5 years long. But we don't know how long after that things go.
Right.
And so we don't know how old Joshua was when he started being, can I say private secretary and have better understanding today?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if you're military, you could say the aide de camp of Moses. But certainly in more modern terms, there are all sorts of names you could say for that, but we won't.
Executive assistant.
Yeah. or is aide de camp, which is a military term for this same type of thing.
Right.
That's been cut down to his military aide now in more modern terms. But still, it's there. And Joshua dies at 110. And then we have several things that, unfortunately, doesn't mean a whole lot to us unless we look. The author traces how they came about by taking the reader back to the death of Joshua. That's what the author's doing. Let's see. There is a cyclic pattern in the book of Judges. Bill, do you by chance have that in any of your notes?
Yeah.
Would you like to describe that cyclic pattern, or
basically, basically what we got is the Israelites will will serve the Lord. Then a new generation will come along who doesn't know the Lord, and they will serve foreign gods like Baal, and they will then God will be upset, and He'll allow some enemy of Israel to rise up and oppress Israel, and the Israelites will go, "Oh, how terrible! Lord, please save us. We love you." And God will say, "Okay, I'll save you," and He'll send a judge. The judge will drive out the oppressors. Everybody will worship God for a while. Then a new generation will come along that doesn't know God, and the cycle will begin again.
All over again, yes.
Yep.
And more violently each time. That's a pretty good descriptor, Bill.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. But this whole time frame of Judges is a time of spiritual decline. And it should also be noted that in stage 4, which is when the Lord raises up a judge to deliver Israel, it's not because they're really changing their mind and trying to go back to God. They're just crying out in pain and unfortunately not paying attention to God at all. There's no real repentance in it. Let's see. Beginning with Jephthah cycle, which is not until chapter 11, but in chapter 11, the land is no longer said to rest after each of the deliverances.
Mm-hmm.
That's important. And let's see. And in the Samson cycle, there's no longer any report of the people crying out to God for help either.
Mm.
That's how far they have deteriorated in all of this. So we have this restatement basically of what's been going on, and that's what we have in this chapter worth. Not divided the way it should be as far as we're looking at it now, but that's all right. It's at least close, I guess. The bottom line for it is that because they failed to follow God's rules about driving out the enemy, and I guess even Joshua a little bit, it might have just been that he was too old to fight anymore. I mean, truthfully, but it's the fact that they stopped as a group. And last week we talked about how they started acting like independent tribes, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so they did not stay together to drive out the enemy, and the enemy stays in the land. And it's now that they're left there by God because it is to test the Israelites' faith. And they fail it, folks. I'm sorry, that's the end of there. We've completed the story of Judges without having any details, but we're not going to do it that way because there's more to it than that. But sure enough, and this is really in the beginning of chapter 3, is really the first reference to the 5 kings of the Philistines. And the Philistines are definitely on the test pattern. And I covered that last week, didn't I, about my beliefs that the Philistines who had made agreements with Isaac and with Abraham,
mm-hmm.
back in Genesis. Yeah. I really want to stay firm on that. But still, it's the fact that God honors the agreements of the Hebrew people even before they were called Hebrews. No, they were always called Hebrews because that was coming out of the land of the Chaldeans, not coming out of Egypt.
Right.
Sorry. But God leaves these groups in, and sure enough, the people get tested almost immediately. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to really point something out, if I may. In
Okay.
chapter 2, it said, let's see, the people worshiped the Lord throughout Joshua's lifetime and during the lifetime of the elders who outlived Joshua. Okay, that's up
Right.
in verses 7. That is verse 7. In reality, we see in chapter 3 that the first judge is Caleb's nephew. His name is Othniel. Caleb being the contemporary with Joshua. And I would have to say that Othniel, who is listed as the first judge, was indeed a leader to start with. And they're already being impacted by surrounding military problems. There are references in here that God left these Canaanites, Amorites, Hittites, and Philistines, just to name 3, to help the people stay learned in combat.
Right.
If you look throughout history, we still have wars and fighting and whatnot. And I don't know what's going on right now in the Ukraine is almost like many more nations are practicing their military strategies because they don't want to lose those strategies. That's really a political thing today that's outside of the look here. But lo and behold, we have, before the first generation even falls away, we see that they're already being tested. So there's a little crossover between chapters 2 and 3 that don't really go together. But nonetheless, Othniel, the nephew of Caleb, who was Joshua's only contemporary, is still alive, and we have them being attacked. And let's see. There it is. It's... Sorry, I lost it. King Cushan Rishathaim. That's as close as I'll do, of Aram. Okay? It is...
Yeah.
This group appears to be outside. Israel proper.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't
I have
place it very well.
Mesopotamia.
Sir?
I have Mesopotamia.
Okay.
King Cushan. Apparently, the literal Hebrew means Adam of the 2 rivers. If that helps people, because I'm guessing the 2 rivers are the Tigris and Euphrates.
Which means it's north, and it's interesting because I've always looked at Judges as being different battles in different portions and how things all work together. That doesn't hold true with the very first judge.
Nope.
Othniel is down in Judah, down here. Mesopotamia is up here. And yet Othniel's the one who leads them and defeats them up there. So it's not just a regional battle. He's literally going through the tribes to destroy this enemy. And he does. And the land had peace for 40 years, and then Othniel died. So guess what? They're way down in the dumps. Do you have anything special you'd like to add on Othniel, Bill?
No. No, that was it. There's really not a lot about him. We talked last week about him being promised Caleb's daughter, and how that was technically against the Lord's law, being a close relative. But
yes, indeed.
So I think we got it all.
Okay. I also forgot to mention what we need to say every week that we are here in Judges.
Yes.
The primary sentence phrase for this entire book: every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Yep.
And we will, over and over again, that's what this is all saying. They weren't worshiping God. They weren't staying fresh with God, even as we all need to stay fresh with God, or same things happen. And especially true is teaching the next generation of our own families. We have to represent Jesus no matter what. And if it doesn't, then people will forget about Jesus.
Right.
Oh, look at that hum. What a lifeline. Folks, I have no idea which is the lifeline or anything else. I don't read palms. When I paint, I suppose I slop some on, so I've read palms times. We won't go there. All right, let's move on to the second judge, Ehud. Ehud is from the tribe of Benjamin, and they're being mistreated by King Eglon of Moab. Now we already
Don't forget, Ehud is a left-handed man.
Yes, but there's a little more detail than that. Do you have it?
Let's see. That he because he was left-handed, he had a two-edged sword that he bound to his right thigh under his robe.
Yep.
So he was able to hide it.
Yep. Here's some more interesting things. Ehud is from the tribe of Benjamin.
Right.
Which means the right hand of God. Ehud is a left-handed man, and in Hebrew, it appears to mean in this case that Ehud is not just a left-handed man, but a restricted right-handed person. He may not have had any use with his right arm.
Huh.
And when we look at the story of Ehud, which we'll just do them briefly because I'll oversight it. I'll just brush over it is what I'll do. But if he was restricted in the right arm from a nation of right-handers and obviously couldn't use it, he's probably looked at as a non-military threat to the people that he goes to. Well, sure enough, they are taking a tribute to King Eglon, trying to keep Eglon from invading the land, is what they're doing. I mean, nations have paid tribute to other nations for many, many years, centuries, eons even, in order not to be overrun. I think... Sorry, but today I think maybe the United States pays other countries instead of them paying them, but it's literally to appease them so they won't have terrible situations rise up. But that's political. We don't want to go there.
Yeah, no, we don't want to go there.
No. But Ehud makes a double-edged sword, puts it, as Bill pointed out, on his right hip because he's the only hand he can use is left. Can't really do it. Nobody's looking for it that way. He's got this problem with his right arm that is obvious, apparently obvious. And they go take all this tribute. And then they leave as a group. Ehud tells the rest of the group, you guys go on home. And he goes back to Ehud saying to Eglon, the king and says, I have a message for you. And this king, who you really wouldn't expect to see as a physical military leader, because this guy's fat.
I have very fat.
Yeah, very fat is right. And the descriptor's there.
I'm that fat and big bone.
This guy had blubber, as we'll see from the description. The king sees this non-military person with a bad right arm, and he says he's confident. He sends everybody else out of the room, and Ehud stabs him in the gut.
Yeah.
And it is so bad. And it gets grody after this, but it's sort of, oh, yeah, this makes sense if you think about it. His intestines come out. The blade literally gets overlapped by all the fat on this guy. But because the intestines were pierced, you get the aroma that comes with that, which sort of gives a reason why his attendants smelled that and thought, oh, he's just in the inner chamber and relieving himself. This is before plumbing. But nonetheless, it's stinky, so they wait a while. But Ehud escapes and calls the country to arms, and they defeat the forces of Eglon, the Moabites. And when they do this, they have peace again for 80 years. In fact, Moab pays them for 80 years.
Right. It's this whole story is, I mean,
yeah, that one's
sorry
loud.
about that. It's supposed to be on Do Not Disturb. I don't know why it would have made a noise. So I apologize. Yeah, it is on Do Not Disturb, so it shouldn't be making noises. Huh. Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, I was saying this whole story it's funny. And if you don't giggle a little bit, there's probably something wrong with you, or there's something wrong with the translation you're using. You've got the very fat man, and the guy getting stabbed in the belly. Mine says, and the refuse came out, and then the servants come, and apparently in the Hebrew, the literal translation is that he is only covering his feet, which is a euphemism for defecating, which it's like when you hear that, it's like he's covering his feet. We say today he's using the little boy's room or something to that nature, and not saying what you're actually doing, and just this whole thing is just this hilarious situation. I mean, it's third grade hilarious, but it's hilarious, and that they use euphemisms in the telling of the story, and just the whole situation. And it's just, people sometimes take the Bible really seriously, and this is a really serious situation, but it's also quite humorous. So it's okay to giggle a little bit, little giggle, little titter, it's a crazy situation.
It is, and yet it isn't. But this battle starts off with the killing of the king.
Right.
And then it is literally becoming free from Moab and Moab ends up paying them subject, or at least subject to Israel. Don't know if there was any tribute at that point in time, but there was certainly 80 years of peace that we're told about. I'm going to move on to the next judge.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Ready? Bill, read verse 31.
31. After Ehud came Shamgar, the son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistine men with an ox goad. He too saved Israel.
My translation says a cattle prod, which brings to mind a modern electrical device, not the ox goad, but that's what it means. It's something to poke along and prod cattle to move. And we have. Go ahead.
I have a footnote on it that says that they rod with a pointed end or fitted with a spike.
Okay. Must have been one terrific, strong rod to be using. You'd think it would be made out of metal today to last, because you'd think a wooden one would break after that, but 600 Philistines. Yeah. It sounds very much like who?
Could it be Samson?
It very easily is like Samson, but different.
Right.
What's different about it? Shamgar is not a Hebrew name.
Really?
Correct. The name Shamgar Anath is not Israeli name, probably a Hurrian or Syrian name. And although not much is known about him, his inclusion as one of the judges shows that the Lord uses even non-Israelites to deliver the people.
Wow.
This is important to us because probably none of us who are listening are near the level of being that is Israelites or Judites. We're not Hebrew.
Nope.
But God can use us still. But Shamgar apparently isn't a native-born redeemer for the land. And so it is important to see that, I think, just like the next one will be important for another reason.
Right.
But lo and behold, we do have this point. He must have been one strong person. We do not know anything else about him, not how many years of peace resulted or anything else, but he certainly gave 600 Philistines the hard end of one stick or the pointed end of that same stick. And it's good to see for us, I think, that, wow, it's so short. It's in here. He's not Hebrew, but he brought about delivery because the Lord had him do so. And that's all we need to say about Shamgar, because there isn't anything else.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, he got his verse.
He got his verse as compared to Melchizedek, the priest king of Salem, who basically blessed Abraham, is talked about in the New Testament. Shamgar is not. So he's even lesser known than Melchizedek. And of course, we talk about Jesus being like the priesthood of Melchizedek, no end, no beginning, no end. And so he gets a little New Testament point. Shamgar just delivers the people. And that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. In fact, if you look at the last verse of chapter 3 and the first chapter of verse 4, you only have references
First verse of
about
chapter
after
4.
the death of Ehud.
Right.
So they don't even mention Shamgar in the running for the next chapter or the next group of judges. What we do have is one of the very few examples in the Old Testament of how important females really could be. Because we're now going to talk about the judge prophetess Deborah. But she's not a fighting judge like the others.
Right.
And so I have some notes on that if I can find them again. Come on, I had it here. I thought I really liked it. So where did I put it? No, I'm not seeing it, so I'll have to look a little bit later. It's a listing of other Old Testament females who rose to influence. Not all of them were good influence, but still, they're overlooked today. For instance, in this particular example, we have Deborah leading the people. She's an in-place judge. She doesn't travel long. She's married. She's called a prophetess. And the people were sinning again. God sold them to King Jabin of the Canaanites, who reigned in Hazor. That's inside the Promised Land. Part of the people that God told the Israelites to drive out back at the time of Joshua, and they failed to do so. And they're pretty strong. His commander is Sisera, and they have 900 iron chariots to go against the Israelites, and the Israelites are absolutely afeared. I'm thinking it's like tanks are today. And there's similarities between the two also. The Israelites cry out. Deborah is doing her thing as a judge already. And she calls, what's our general's name, Bill?
Sisera. Oh, no, Barak.
Barak, yes, she calls to Barak. And he is from the tribe of Naphtali, which, again, from what we talked about last week, Israel is, all the descriptors of the tribes go from south to north. And it seems like the delivery goes south to north also. We have Judah, the first one, that was Othniel. And then we have Ehud is Benjamite. They're right above Judah. And now we have Naphtali, which is further up. So we're going up the map, but only a little bit up the map as we look at it here. Barak is called, and Barak is told by Deborah, the judge, recognized as a judge and a leader, but not militarily. And she says, go and take 10,000 men and fight against Sisera. And he says, sure I will, if you go with me. And this is really an amazing thing. Asking for a woman to go into battle with them. She doesn't really go into battle, but she agrees and says, but you're not going to get the credit and glory for this defeat. A woman will. She doesn't even say her.
Right.
She says a woman. And they go to battle against 900 iron chariots. Well, the thing that is similar with iron chariots then and tanks today is mud. That's all there is to it. They don't move around in mud, and that's how this all comes about. They go to battle in the valley of Jezreel, and God has made it rain, or maybe, it has to really be rain that did this. It can't be just an overflow from the Sea of Galilee, as an example. But lo and behold, they get bogged down in the mud and can't use iron chariots or tanks in mud, and they're defeated. And that's a real easy descriptor of this. Sisera escapes on foot. He leaves his iron chariot and runs on foot to get away. And if you've ever seen people running in mud that's that kind of deep, this is a slow race. But somehow he escapes to an area that is absolutely important. Because, let's see, we have the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men follow him. Deborah also went with him, but basically, other than, how did I have it? Deborah's rallying the troops is the last time we really see her in this chapter. The battle starts. Sisera escapes just that much. Just a little. He goes to an area that he knows is somewhat friendly to them, but it's also an area that is friendly to the Israelites. He fled to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber, the Canaanite. It is believed that this is a group of traveling metalsmiths. This group of the Kenites. They did not hook up with any of the other Kenites, and it's also believed that they are descendants of Moses' father-in-law, Jethro.
Right.
Okay. J.L.
or Hobab, as I have.
I'm sorry?
I have Hobab, the father-in-law of Moses.
Okay.
Hobab is identified as the son of Moses' father-in-law in Numbers 10:29.
Okay. And in Genesis, I believe Exodus, I believe he's called Jethro as his father-in-law too, but different names for different folks in different languages.
Yep.
That goes into another rabbit trail. We don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So let's not go there. He goes into her tent. She hides him. She gives him a drink of goat's milk. He falls asleep under a covering that she gave him so that he could hide from the enemies pursuing him. And then she takes a tent peg and a hammer and basically pins him through the head, through the brain, to the floor. Whatever that flooring is, he is now dead. And when the Israelite pursuers get that far, she says, "Hey, come on in here, and I'll show you the person you're pursuing." And she's given the glory for killing Sisera, the general of the armies that were trying to basically destroy the Israelites. Remember I said Deborah doesn't get credit. If you go to the New Testament, you will see Barak listed in the names of heroes in Hebrews, not Deborah and not JL. It's only
Right.
men who are listed in the New Testament group of heroes of the past. Male society, I don't like it, but it's the way it's done. It was done.
Yeah. What was Priscilla thinking when she left out Deborah and JL?
You know, that might be a good answer on another rabbit trail. Who really did write Hebrews? And our desire to believe that it was Priscilla. But I guess we shouldn't go into that now. It's a rabbit trail.
No.
A deeper rabbit
We'll go
trail
into
than
it
the
when we
ones
get to
I'm going
Hebrews.
on now, maybe. But what we have after that is JL is given the credit, not Barak, but the army keeps going. They destroy the rest of this Canaanite army and eventually the king himself. And let's see where. Yep, it says. Let's see. Subdued the king of Jabin of Canaan before the Israelites. The power of the Israelites continued to increase against King Jabin until they destroyed him. Him might be a reference to his power and his influence on the people, or they may have actually gotten him killed as well. We're not told how much time there was in peace until the very end of chapter 5, which is the land had peace for 40 years.
Yep.
Why is this? We're going to get into the song because we still have time left for the next chapter. Deborah's song itself.
Do we?
Oh, we have, according to mine, we have 40. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. My time frame is wrong.
Timer's
What?
off. Yep. Yeah, the time frame is wrong.
Yep. I think we're actually getting closer, so it's all right.
Yeah.
We do have a period of peace for 40 years after this happened. The Song of Deborah is good to read because it gives us an idea of early poetic form and literature of the Hebrew people. And the fact that they were doing it in song, musical verse type. And it emphasizes it was a time when, at least while the people weren't worshiping God steadily, they were, in fact, willing to participate in battles against their enemies. That isn't always true here in Judges. As I say, we'll even get to the point to where they won't even cry out to God for help. And that's sad to look at and to realize. But shall we? I don't know how much to do now, Bill. You want to say anything at this point?
Yeah. Just to reaffirm what you said. There's a lot in the song that is well worth reading, not just because of its poetic nature, but because of bits and pieces of the story that aren't told in the main text. Definitely take a read at it and study. There's in 16. They're talking about the tribe of Reuben. Be basically hiding among the sheepfolds, the sheep, or the saddlebags, and being indecisive about going to battle. There's another, a tribe of a part of an area of the territory of Naphtali, because their people weren't coming to help drive out the oppressors and praising JL and telling of her tales, of her tale and all. So definitely a song well worth reading and checking out some of the commentary on it because it'll help you understand.
Yep. Yes, you're right. Thinking, as compared to what I was saying on the participation, you talk about the participation in battle, and yet it singles out some of the tribes who didn't participate. There's the national unity is falling apart. It's not 12 brothers, families fighting together. They are literally falling apart more and more. And so we have that too. But we better end for this time frame because we don't know how long we are.
I think so.
Yep. So we will pick up at chapter
I think
6
we're pretty
next week.
Sounds good to me. Chapter 6. Yeah. Let me make a note of that.
Me too.
You all should make a note of that too. So, yes, and we'll be getting back. Israel will be pressed by Midian.
Yes, indeed.
And yes.
Lost your picture. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it flashed on me for a second. It gave me a little warning that it was having trouble reading my video. Yeah. So hopefully it hasn't been a big problem because I don't watch the thing because I'm looking at the Bible while we're recording. But yeah, so if you've come this far with us, Gentle Inquisitor, perhaps you will come a little bit further and join us in this family we call Christianity. We do this not with sacrifice because that's been taken care of once and for all by the blood of Jesus on the cross and his resurrection. And we don't use magic spells or mystical ceremonies because that's not how we roll. In fact, the sinner's prayer is not a magic spell. It's not the words that get you into heaven. It's the attitude of the heart. The words are simply an overflow of your belief because the Bible tells us that to be saved, you must confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus is Lord. And so seriously, the saying the words doesn't get you into heaven alone.
The grace of God does.
Yes.
What?
The grace of God.
Yes, the grace of God does. Let's see, and let's see. Whether you've been a believer for a second or a century, all have sinned and continually fall short of the glory of God. So daily you should be going to God in prayer, asking for forgiveness. And we invite you to spend this time with us. If you're a new believer, go ahead and say the words that I say. If you're an old believer, an aged believer, a seasoned believer, then go ahead and say your own words, seeking God's guidance and forgiveness, and we'll kind of do this together then, because the words of the sinner's prayer are not in the Bible, and so you don't have to say exactly what I say. I put it together as an attempt to say something meaningful, and hopefully you'll find some help in it. So here we go. Dear Lord, I am a sinner. Cleanse me of my wickedness. Show me how to love you with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength. And teach me how to love my neighbor as myself. Guide my steps along the path you would have me take. And help me to do the work you have for me to do in the building of your kingdom. come into my heart and be the Lord and Savior of my life. And all these things we pray in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Still getting used to the new way of doing it. But anyway, thank you. This, of course, is not the end, but the beginning. If you've prayed this prayer for the first time, your next step is to go out and find yourself a Bible-believing church with a Bible-preaching pastor and a lot of strong Christians to help you find your next steps, because that's what's important. Saying that you believe in Jesus is not the end of your Christian journey. It is merely the beginning. It's the getting on the starting chalks of life. And if you've been forgiven for the umpteenth time, well, then it's time to get to running again, and figure out what your next steps are. So go ahead and do that, and then come back here for more shows. On Thursday, I'll be doing another episode of Not Quite After Midnight, and I will be having on the show, hold on a second, I had it, but I've forgotten. I think it's Doc Christine. Let's see. Oops, wrong page. Let's see. Yes, Doc Christine and Don Witt. Dawn is a philanthropist and book author, and she has the desire to inspire. She's got her own foundation there, and then Doc Christine is a brain trainer. She will help you train your brain for success. So we'll be talking about all sorts of things there. And and it's going to be a fun and interesting conversation as per the usual. So be sure to join us for that. And then on Saturday will be another episode of YWL Online. Anything can happen Saturday, where it's going to. We're changing up. We finished up Dr. Barnett's 52 Greatest Chapters of the Bible, and we're going to be starting on a book called what is it? Dear God,
I have a question.
Questions.
Yes, and Catherine Slattery is the author. And this week's topic will be we'll see how long it goes, but prayer.
Yep. And prayer is a good thing. It's a
our
big thing.
Communication with God.
And we probably don't do it enough. Yep. So a great choice of topic by Rudy. And sorry, I keep bumping into the table and it keeps shaking out the camera.
Should I go back and forth this way while you're going up and down?
There you go.
But next week.
So do join us for that. And then next Tuesday, we'll be back to Judges.
Chapters 6, 7, and 8.
In chapter 6.
Yeah,
6,
we're
7,
only covering
so
one judge. It's Gideon and his golden fleece.
Yep.
No.
Yep. No, not
it's
golden
not
fleece.
The golden fleece.
That's Jason.
It is the fleece.
Different set of things entirely. Different set of writings entirely.
But Gideon and the fleece, we'll look at a lot more than that.
Yes. Right. So, yes, the rise and fall of Gideon. So get to reading, and if you missed a past episode, go ahead and scroll down and find that episode so you can catch up. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out. We get our comments and our direct messages, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to pray with you, So reach out. We're happy to have you. I think that's about it. So we've come to the end of another episode, and I will ask you, fine gentlemen, once again, do you have any last words to say to the nice people?
Yes, I love you all, and try to find the Lord's peace and live life so beautiful and peacefully. Waka waka with the Lord.
And I'll close out by saying, remember from today's study, God could use non-Hebrews to bring about victory for his people. He could use women for victory for his people. He can use us still today for victory for Jesus. God bless from Poplar Bluff.
Yep. God's blessings from Santa Ana, California. Be safe out there. Remember to wash your hands and watch the ending credits.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I would like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host.
I would also like to thank my co-host, my beloved father, Chaplain Bill Hatch. I'd really like to thank my Ed McMahon, Rudy Corlew.
Yes.
Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss Not Quite After Midnight. You can find us on Facebook and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. 988 is the suicide and mental health crisis lifeline here in the States.